Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.
The note that you have in your wallet will have no value, but a bar of gold will still have some value, because you can go to another country and tell them that take this bar of gold and give me notes of your country.
If you had to explain what you do to a teenager, how would you do it in as simple language as possible so that it's
FICC, just by definition, means fixed income, currencies, and commodities. And global markets in any bank are divided into equities and FICC. The reason why I'm saying it is probably relevant to the explanation is, do you understand how market making happens? It probably all of you do it when you go to the vegetable vendor as well, but it happens in a more structured manner in financial markets, where imagine like a stack of Jenga cubes and another stack which is reverse. Okay, so one is hanging upside down from the ceiling and one is built on the floor, and whenever their heights cross, right, those stacks are moved away. Okay, so that is what is a order matching system. Like whenever, so imagine the stacks from the ground are bids, are people who are trying to buy something and anything, right? And the stacks from above are people who are wanting to sell a thing. And whenever the prices which these guys are willing to buy at, and the price at which these guys are, the reverse stack, are willing to sell at, whenever the price matches, uh, it's matched off and you get a trade. In a way, that's what happens when you buy apples. You don't consciously make a decision as to what price you are going to bid for apple. You just like, सब्जी वाले उसने 200 रुपये बोला, तुम 180 बोलते हो. Like you're just taking feedback. Like because he's saying 200, you are doing it 10% below that. In financial market, it's much more analytical. Like you have made a, you have had some working behind why you are bidding for that price, or why you are offering at that price. So this is how broadly a order matching system works. And in if you any of you if you have traded equities, equity broker basically gives you access to this order matching system, to the access to put an order in this system, and charges you a fee for that. Uh, Banks equity divisions do something similar in a lot more sophisticated manner, but the thing that is, they give access to the market and hence charge a fee for it, and it's fee income. uh, if you have seen the movie Khosla Ka Ghosla, there is a line in which Naveen Nishal goes for a negotiation, and the first question he asks is, "Aap party ho ya broker?" And what he's trying to figure out is if the person on the other side, is he a buyer or is he the person enabling the trade. So he says it in a bit derogatory manner, and I don't want to use it that way, but my equity division guys will kill me if I do that. That is the key difference between the equities business and the FICC business, where the equity division is a broker and who enables buyers to meet sellers, whereas the FICC division acts like the party, where if someone wants to buy bonds, like, so FICC is fixed income, is government bonds and corporate bonds. Currencies is FX, and commodities is all your oil, gold, agricultural commodities. So whenever someone wants to buy or sell any of these, they come to the bank, and the bank takes the reverse position. So if you want to sell, the bank buys it from you, and then it's the bank's job to sell it out in the market at a better rate than what it bought at. And in the hence you have sales and trading in a FICC business, where the sales person's job is to get more and more clients to trade with the bank, and it's the trader's job that once a trade happens, to ensure that the price at which the bank gets out of that position is a better price than what was offered to the client. So that's how money is made in a FICC business. I am a part of the sales team whose job is to get more clients to deal with the bank, and We have a trading team whose job is to basically ensure to monetize that flow that has come to the bank.
So, by the way, guys, equities means for people who have no clue. Newspaper में देखते होंगे Sensex, Nifty. There are stocks that are getting traded. That is what equities means. I'm just saying it
Yeah.
because there are a lot of people who have had no background. in
That's why I
this
said
at all.
that I try to tone down my jargon, but some of it is just so ingrained it becomes difficult to take it out completely.
Okay. So, so I have a follow-up question on what you just said. You said that you obviously you try to sell your services in a way.
Sorry, I'll
yeah.
just complete it. Maybe that's what you were going to ask. That like, why would someone deal with? Like, how do I get people to deal with us? So one is just advisory kind of function, right? So it's mainly that. So you get you. So we also have a research team. So you pass on research, you explain research to them. You generally are expected to understand and be more well-read. You be well-read about
So
the subject.
again, going back, when you say research is shared with them, what is the research about? Because how does research affect decision making? So research is about oil prices, about the political economy. The research is about why is the GDP going down, and how will that have an impact on government bond rates and corporate bond? Is that what you mean by research?
Yeah, exactly. So all macro factors like we would have research teams who try to extrapolate current data, and I know people who do as on the ground research within the firm, like go to a Hero MotoCorp showroom and actually ask those people there that like try to understand from the showroom guys the sales feedback, and like also try to understand why it's not happening. Like because I just happened to come across this example recently. I don't know if you've been following Indian economy. There are a big thing. Part of that was like auto sales going down. That was a big theme for the last 6 months. So this one of our guys went to a showroom, and there's another theme that has been going on is the NBFC crisis. So non-banking financial companies are not doing well.
They give loans.
They give loans for these to buy cars or buy scooters or buy motorbikes. So he went to the showroom to understand why the sales were down. Were there because people were not, there were less footfalls, like people were not coming to the store and were not interested in buying because they didn't have money because they were not getting a new job? Or was it because people were coming in to buy, but because NBFCs were not doing well, they were not getting loans to buy, and because they were not getting loans, hence although they had the desire to buy, they were not buying. And if you read newspaper articles, you won't get this difference. And all our clients are not going to spend so much time and doing this research themselves. So there are guys in the bank who do this, and that's how we add value and help clients make better decisions.
Okay, so my question was actually, ultimately, fixed income markets, currencies, etc. It's an undifferentiated commodity that you are trying to, buy or sell, like get them to trade, right? How do you differentiate yourself from your competitors as a salesperson, saying that trade with us and don't trade with your competitor banks? What is so special? Because are you saying pricing is the only thing that gives you an edge, or is it technology platform, or is it the quality of the research? What differentiates, or is it just your own capacity to convince them?
That's a trade secret. I don't want to share it.
Okay.
No, but broadly speaking, it's a bit of all of it.
Okay.
There's been a lot of regulatory new regulations that have come in financial markets since 2010 onwards, and most of them have been predominantly aimed at the FICC world, and that was because FICC is this over-the-counter derivatives, which was the unregulated piece. Equity markets were always regulated. So,
But this you are saying in terms of regulation in India or regulation in the US?
across the world.
Across the world.
Across
Okay.
the world. One of the things also, so banks expect, so reserve banks, regulators and central bankers and SEBI kind of organizations, they in a way put the onus on banks to ensure compliance to the regulation. So if you can treat SEBI and RBI as lawmakers, there is no police for them. right? They don't have a police force, they don't have a judiciary.
Right.
So they have audit teams who function like a judiciary, but they expect banks to, in a way, do the job of the
Self-regulation.
police and ensure that they themselves, the banks themselves, and all their clients are complying to regulation. Being abreast with this regulation and explaining it to clients and ensuring that the client is also not breaking any regulation also has become a part of the job description, which was not there pre 2010.
Okay, so you gave a theoretical answer to what you do. Now, on a day-to-day basis, what makes your job exciting? Is it like, for example, we had interviewed an equities trader a few months back, and obviously, equities is easier to explain to people why it's so exciting because market suddenly ऊपर जा रहा है, नीचे जा रहा है, जो बहुत सारे लोग track करते हैं.
Right.
Whereas FICC is a relatively small world, and sometimes the movements are also probably not as volatile. Maybe they are, but you need to break those myths amongst people.
Yeah, so the volatility is less, but see, it's about what you get used to, and hence anything different from that is new and exciting, right? So if you are used to, just in a very like broadly speaking, if you are used to 10% volatility, then you get excited by 20%. But if you are used to 2% volatility, you will get excited by even 5% volatility, right? So just to answer that specific part where equity markets are more volatile, but you have these instances in both markets which kind of give you an adrenaline rush, a kick, or like make you jump in your seat.
So,
and
would you say an RBI policy, like for example, if you guys know every 45 odd days, the RBI comes with a policy which changes the benchmark interest rates at which lending should ideally take place, right? So, and that has a big impact on your markets. So, has that happened? Like, what are some of the memorable occasions?
Yeah.
You don't need to like give us any confidential details, but some event that you felt was a very memorable day in your trading career or sales career.
Although I've been trading in India, so because global markets also affect how
Right.
the Indian markets move, I have two instances not really related to India. I interned in Singapore with a different bank on the FX trading desk. Uh, People start working there quite early. Okay, so as an intern, I had to come in at 5:30, and most of the team also came in between 5:30 and 6. Just the head of the desk came in around 7, as heads usually do. If you Google flash crash 2010, you would get a wiki article on it. There was and the reason has not been explained, but there was a flash crash in the S&P, which is the US equivalent of Nifty. It like crashed some 10% and rebounded back very quickly. I happened to be the first person on the desk, as interns are expected to be, at 5:30 in the morning. And I saw the head of the desk was my boss. Okay, he had walked in at 2 a.m. Even before that, he was trading full night. And you would feel that he has come after 2 days of continuous sleeping. Like he was that excited, as jumpy, and then I think you are not supposed to disclose this information to interns especially, but he happened to tell me that he made $1 million that night because he was just so excited about all that. So, and I was told by many other people on the desk also that like you could see the visible excitement amongst everyone on the floor, and like I was told by many people that like you are lucky that you are getting to see such a day during your internship. Like these days happen once in a year or once in 2 years, and you are in the 2 months that you are interning, you had one such day. The second would be the central banks also intervene in FX markets because the level of currency has an actual impact on the economy, right? So because say if rupee was weaker than what it is, it would help exporters from India export, and similarly it would make oil imports costlier. So central banks have a stake in the level of currency, and hence they routinely intervene.
So they will not allow a really volatile thing to happen where suddenly the currency becomes 100 at any point of time, or that the currency will even appreciate to becoming say 40. Like right now it must be around 73, 75. They will never allow it to suddenly in a day you will never see the currency move to 50 or 100 because that's not healthy for the economy because given the fact that almost every product that we consume has some element of import and export, especially like electronic goods and stuff like that, because we import a lot of that. So it has a big impact on our life. Like suddenly prices will change. So the RBI has to be very sure about how this movement takes place.
It's called the SNB, the Swiss National Bank, also intervenes because Switzerland itself is a very external dependent economy, right? So like tourism, banking, chocolates, watches, everything that they export a lot. So the level of, so they are a bit reverse of India, where they want their currency to be weaker because that's what helps growth of their domestic economy. As historically, because Switzerland has always been this neutral country in the world, anytime there is a crisis in the financial markets, just like people want to buy gold because for historical reasons, like if there's anarchy in India, right, the note that you have in your wallet will have no value, but a bar of gold will still have some value because you can go to another country and tell them that take this bar of gold and give me notes of your country. Or if there's a new government in India, you can still go to the new government, tell them take this bar of gold and you give me new currency notes. No one's going to accept the current currency notes that you have. So that's why gold has a lot of value in the markets.
It's basically got a stature के कुछ भी हो जाएगा, दुनिया अगर crumble भी हो रही होगी तो भी the Swiss currency will be strong, or it will always be valued. People will always give something in return for that.
In 2011-12 again, there was the European Greek crisis, Greek debt crisis, and there was a worry that the euro itself will stop being a currency. So the euro project was a massive thing where some 10-15 countries came together and agreed that we will do away with our own currency and have a common currency. And during the Greek debt crisis, there were fears that this project is a failure. All countries are going to break up and start having their own currencies again. And hence, there was a lot of flows from the whole of rest of Europe into Switzerland, because if euro is going to lose its value, I need to be in a currency which will retain its value, and that is the Swiss franc. And hence Swiss franc was strengthening. If everyone buys, like in any market, right, if everyone wants to buy the Swiss franc, its value will keep going up. And the Swiss central bank decided enough of it, we will put a floor on the level, and whoever basically wants to sell euro and buy the Swiss franc, we will keep buying euros and selling Swiss franc in unlimited amounts, so that the Swiss franc stops appreciating. In around 2015, they decided to do away with this floor. Not relevant why they did it. So the 1.20 was their level, where they said you sell unlimited number of euros and buy Swiss franc at 1.2 conversion rate. And then suddenly one day they came out and said we are going to stop buying. And that was, they had to do it suddenly. And again, if you go in depth in financial markets, you'll realize why it has to be sudden. They couldn't prepare the markets for it. Correct. Everything went all over the place because you have these algo traders, right, in currencies, and they panic in such scenarios. Algos panic when they are mostly better than humans in 99.99% of cases, but in such scenarios they panic. Euro Swiss, the exchange rate finally settled from 1.20 to around 1.05 or somewhere, but that day it traded all the way to 0.2, 0.3, like any level. And I know people in Hong Kong actually where they can withdraw cash at different levels from the ATM in different currencies, and that rate is same for the day because that's a rate that has been input in the ATM system, and it has enough markup, like 4-5% markup. But on that day, because Swiss franc appreciated by 300% or 400%, a 5% markup was nothing. So I know actually people who rushed down from their building to the ATM shop to withdraw like as much as they could. What was the limit was there in Swiss franc, and they just had to wait for a day when it resettled at a different level and like sell it back. So even on so it didn't really, like in sitting in India, it doesn't have that kind of impact, but just being in that scenario when this happened was really exciting.
That's like I think something like this would happen like once in, I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
It's a really rare event in that sense.
Sorry, the story was a bit long. Some of you might not relate to it, But in a way, like, I also wanted to convey like the excitement that happens in the markets, and maybe you don't relate to it now, but if at all you join markets and or a trading floor, you would definitely understand. You'll get to experience a few of these moments. There are a lot of breakups also that happen on campuses, and that's also because there is no time.